Have you ever stopped and wondered how much you used to care about somebody's opinion of you? Maybe 5 or 10 years ago, where it felt like a big deal. But here's the thing, you still care about what people think. And they don't even know your whole story. And they probably don't even remember you. Because whatever happened in the past, and whatever people thought about you, doesn't need to define how you live now. And the truth is, those opinions that you cared so much about in the past, they probably don't even exist anymore. And the opinions of humans are flimsy. They can change in an instant, often based on what people can see at face value. But we have to ask ourselves why we have the tendency to seek validation and recognition from others in the first place. Is it because that is what makes you valuable in the eyes of society? Whether that's you climbing the corporate ladder or seeking status or fame? Or is it to satisfy the expectations of others so that you can finally be at peace? But we have to pause for a second. Because does that actually make any sense? Because trying to seek validation from others is a dead end. And yet, this is how most people are living their lives. And the result? Many people suffer in silence, trying to meet the expectations of the people around them. Take certain parents, for example. They might push their kids to study hard, not only to ensure their future success, but also to meet underlying societal expectations. It's more so about proving to others that their child has value, and by extension, their family. And living a life where you're constantly worried about what others might think of you. It's an unfree way to live. But here's the thing, right? The only way to guarantee that no one likes you is to lie. And that in itself has its own problem. Because lying to please others only creates more stress, as you're most likely trying to keep on track with your past lies. And you have to be the one to carry all of that emotional baggage on your shoulders. But when you live authentically, many people are just going to dislike you. And it's because you're trying to embrace your own freedom. And a funny thing happens when you start to be your true self, which is other people start to project their own insecurities onto you. It may have to do with them envying your ability to live as you will, or even the fact that they just don't like your personality, or even the way that you look. And this might sound a little bit confusing, because I don't think anyone would intentionally want to be disliked, right? But this is the price we have to pay. And when you live the way that you want to, you're going to come across this psychological resistance from others in different social settings. And many of those relationships in your life would have been built around certain values. And when those change, the entire dynamic changes too. And why is that? It's because everyone has built this sort of mental avatar of who they think you are. And here's the harsh truth. You can't control how others think of you, but you can control how you present yourself to the world and how you respond to that. But if you try and control other people's perception of you, you're going to be constantly changing who you are. And you're going to turn into someone who's just not comfortable being themselves. And an individual may be doing this as they have this inherent belief that having more friends would mean that they have a more fulfilling life. But is that really true? Because I would argue that it's not about the number of relationships that you have, but rather the depth of connection. And when forming relationships in your own life, it's best to avoid judging others purely at face value, as this sort of judgment is inherently flawed, since it's only based on surface level impressions, and it rarely reflects the complexity of the individual. And modern society encourages this sort of superficiality, and you might be able to relate to this, where you may be smiling politely and saying certain things which you may not want to say, but it's just simply the social norm, as our environment encourages this sort of deception, if you will. But the downside is that relationships built on superficiality lack real meaning and depth. And this lack of depth creates a sort of disconnect, as people see others as a means to an end, rather than an individual to genuinely connect with. And this is tied into the nature of judgment itself, which often stems from vertical relationships, where individuals unconsciously evaluate others based on a perceived social ranking, rather than interacting with others based on equal human terms. In fact, the default state that the majority of people approach relationships are vertical relationships. And this mainly stems from societal conditioning, where comparisons, competition, and hierarchical structures are ingrained at such a young age. Since people tend to subconsciously position themselves either above or below you based on certain variables, this only creates further division and encourages judgment. And the key to breaking this pattern of thinking is by prioritizing horizontal relationships, which encourages connection rather than comparison. And this will allow others to appreciate each other without the burden of judgment or hierarchy. But this shift isn't easy. It takes courage and active effort to try and unlearn the societal conditioning, and instead approach others with this sense of openness and trust. And I'm going to be completely honest, this is something that I'm working on right now. Now, when it comes to worrying about what others think of you, what would you say is the solution? Is it to just stop caring? Because that is the sort of advice that people love to give. But let's just be real here. If it were that easy, you probably wouldn't be watching this video. Now, the solution to this lies in adopting this mentality of neutrality rather than indifference. And trust me, there is a big difference. Essentially, neutrality is when you acknowledge the opinions of others without it letting you influence or define you. It's about showing empathy and respect while staying true to yourself. Whereas being indifferent means that you just have a complete lack of care of the opinions of other people. And being indifferent could mean that you may be missing out on valuable insights and potential for growth. Instead, neutrality strikes a balance, being able to thoughtfully consider other people's perspective while still staying rooted in your own authenticity. And the more you embrace your authenticity and live how you want, the less power other people's opinion have on you. And couple that with trying to build those genuine horizontal relationships, this is, in my humble opinion, the way to go about things. I appreciate you watching the video, and if you're still interested, you can check out the videos that are popping up on screen right now.